Albinism Talk with Marvelyn, with your host, Marvelyn Green. Now, this talk is a vitiligo because June 25th was World Vitiligo Awareness. Alongside June 13th was International Albinism Awareness. Speaking of vitiligo, we've got someone from that community. So before I introduce our guests, please follow Yell4Change on all social media platforms, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, as this episode will be on YouTube for advocacy and educational purpose. Without further ado, we have our guest. He is the founder of the Vitiligo and Albinism Network and motivational speaker and author. I present to you Ben Brown. Good evening from London. Ben, how are you?
Hello, thank you for having me, Marvelyn. I really appreciate you having me on your show. Thank you.
Oh, it's an honor and a pleasure. So Ben, please introduce yourself. Just share with our listeners what you do, so forth.
Okay, sure. So my name is Benjamin Brown from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm 42 years old. When I was roughly 35 years old, I was diagnosed with vitiligo. And if you can see this part of my body, my entire body was all brown up until the year, 35 years old. And so it was a shock to me to start losing my pigmentation and to be told that I may one day lose all of my pigmentation. And and I hate to use Michael Jackson as a reference, but the world knows who Michael Jackson is. So that was obviously scary to me. So I immediately started looking around for people like myself to kind of walk me through this door, because I was freaking out. So I met a couple of people from around the world, but I wanted something more tangible, something more local. And the guy told me, well, if there is no local group, why don't you start one? So even though I was in my struggle mode, I stepped out and started the Tennessee Vitiligo Awareness Network, so that I could bring people around my area together to kind of help me walk through this next phase of my life. And as it turns out, the group began to grow bigger and bigger than Tennessee. And I started attending albinism functions through the albinism community to kind of learn how to put a group together with people like Miss Muse and Latoya Freeman, two local people in the albinism community. And they just really helped me. I would ask for pointers and ask for ideas, and they were really influential in me growing my vitiligo group. So every time I would, put all this energy into my vitiligo group, I feel like I was leaving out these people in the albinism community who had helped me put this together. And Latoya Freeman was one of the admins of the group. So I didn't want to leave her out. And I also think that we can learn a lot from the albinism community. Although our diagnoses are different and our reasons for loss of pigment are different, we look very similar. We all have a strange relationship with the sun. And when people see us in the community, if I lose all my pigment, they won't know if I have albinism or vitiligo. And I think the albinism community are beautiful people. So I wanted to share their beautiful photos so that people could borrow the strength that the albinism community have. So I just included vitiligo and albinism, and I just combined the two in a group. And a lot of the vitiligo people didn't get it, and they still don't get it, and that's okay. It's not for them to get. It's just about empowerment. And if I can post a beautiful story about Marvelyn or Latoya or Journey Muse, and that inspires someone from the vitiligo community, it's all good. So I embrace anybody who is struggling and who is looking for inspiration. And wherever I can get that inspiration that people can relate to, I'll use it.
Amazing. You touch upon, you said that you were diagnosed, because I was asked that question. You did mention you was 35 when you was diagnosed with vitiligo. My question I'm going to touch upon is, when you notice your skin, there was a change in losing your pigmentation in your skin, did you go to the doctors immediately? And what happened when you was diagnosed with vitiligo? How did they describe that to you?
Okay. Yeah, good question. So my vitiligo started a dot here and a dot here. And you just think that it's maybe a scar that's not healing properly because, you know, guys, we shave and sometimes we're scarred. So I'm like, okay. But then it started growing. And then I got one on my wrist right here.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was out of place. And I'm like, okay, let's go to the doctor. You know, immediately my mind jumped to cancer, some kind of skin cancer. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm 35. You know, it's time to start, you know, thinking about my health. So I did go to the doctor and he said, you know, I can't say this with certainty, but I'm 99% sure you have vitiligo. And he said, it won't kill you. It's not, there's a word for not deadly. It eludes me right now, but basically he said it's not going to harm you. It does present different struggles for different people, including African Americans who are darker pigmented, because your skin will be, it's more obvious. And so he sent me to a dermatologist and they confirmed that it was vitiligo. And he said, he was a white gentleman, and he told, the way he was speaking in a way that if I lose my pigmentation, I'll lose my identity as an African American. And I was a little bit offended by that because I was thinking, don't you know that your skin does not define your nationality? Like, I don't care if I'm white, I'm still a black man. But he was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So he was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like the best thing for you to do is to embrace it. And
Mm-hmm.
and the word embrace it to me meant give up, let, you know, just let the vitiligo have its way. Don't fight it, because if you look at any other organization like breast cancer awareness or lupus or whatever the case may be, it's always fight lupus, fight cancer, fight this, fight that, but they want you to just embrace vitiligo because there's no cure.
Yeah.
And that you know, as a believer in God, that really I didn't like it, because I'm like, I'm not one to just roll over to anything in life. I'm a warrior. I'm gonna pray, and this will not be my destiny. So you can keep that embrace advice to yourself. But go ahead. I'm just rambling. Go ahead.
That's all right. It's okay. So that's so important because, you know, most people, when they look at vitiligo, and one of the things I know about vitiligo until recent. One of my friend, we went to school together, and she has a daughter, and she told me about vitiligo. But then I remember years back, there was a young lady that I went to secondary school with, and she had like a patch on her face here. I didn't know me. I didn't. And nothing, like I thought it was just maybe a birthmark or something. But yeah, I think it's essential that we embrace uniqueness. And for me, I was born with albinism myself, and obviously, you know, I grew up me being the only one in my family with albinism, and you know, me having the blonde hair or the blue eyes, they questioned my identity. I remember when I first went to school and they were like, are you black or are you white? You know, I've been questioned about my experience of albinism. So I've had just similarities with vitiligo experience and the stigma around it, because with albinism, it is congenital from birth, where vitiligo is not. It's autoimmune. So these are things that people need to educate themselves in. And one of the things I've learned, and you did mention about a few weeks back, because I'd done a host show called Albinism, the Global Talk, and she was a part of that. And it was so many, we just formed a community with albinism. And it's important that we form communities of people who understand the struggle, who understand what a next person's going through. So blessed and honored that she was a part of that, part of this talk. And to know that, I thought, let me open the doors to the vitiligo community, because I don't want to be biased and just think, oh, albinism, albinism, albinism. But what about the vitiligo community? I think it's important for me as an advocate to really give the vitiligo community a chance to really share their stories and their experiences with vitiligo.
Let me jump in there. Let me
yeah.
jump in there behind what you just said. So, you know, the vitiligo community, we want people to, we want to kill the stigma. We don't
Yes.
like this. We don't like the staring. We want to
Yeah.
we want to educate, and we also want to have everyone have self-love.
Right.
But what I find interesting is you can get so caught up in your own story and your own struggle that you can't embrace another person's struggle or story. And that's what I would like both the vitiligo and the albinism community to do, is to have more collaboration like this, because I feel like everyone's so wrapped up in their own story that we can't. Oh, yeah, we need to do more collaboration like this. So.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, that was it. That was it. I thought another person joined us, but that that was just another.
Yeah, so one of the things I've also learned, and I think it's important that everybody shares their story. I think it's important that everyone shares their stories and share their whatever they go through, because I think it empowers the community when we share our stories, whether you have vitiligo, if you have albinism, we to really make allies and to really understand and to be more empathetic towards each other, because if we don't, then we have to kind of learn to take accountability of breaking the stigma amongst ourselves and break the barriers of the stigma towards vitiligo and albinism, because pretty much it is similar in terms of with the stares and the bullying and the discrimination with both communities. So
true.
Yeah, so the next question I'm going to ask you, Ben, is did vitiligo affect your relationship with your internal and your external, so family, friends, wife, whoever that you associate yourself? How does that affect them?
Well, at first, when my face started turning white and I had 2 white patches here and a white patch around my mouth, I had a lot of negative experiences. I've had police called on me saying that I was wearing a ski mask. I've had children break down and start crying. I've had teenagers just shriek and run. So I've had a lot of negative experiences to make me feel ugly, to make me feel hideous, to make me feel like a monster. So yeah, it mentally did break me down really, really bad. But as it so happened, right along the time where my vitiligo started, I actually met my wife. And I just had a few spots when I met her. And she's always been like my battle buddy. She's always been my angel, as I like to call her, because she has enough love inside of her heart to just help lift me out of whatever predicament I found myself in. But my family was supportive. I'd put distance between myself and my friends. And when I found myself in a better space and I tried to reconnect with my friends, I noticed that those bridges were not opened anymore. So I felt like I lost some friends, and partly because it was my fault, because I basically pushed them away. But when I came to a space where I was ready to get that relationship back, it wasn't there. So any friends I have now, I've met after 2018. So other than that, I have beautiful children that support me. And as long as I have their support, I can do anything.
Well, I can share the same thing. I'm also a wife as well. I've been married to my husband for 4 years, and we've been like it's practically like my best friend. Really, he, to be honest, like he didn't know about albinism for he never really knew about it, but he got so intrigued. And most of the time, I was tell him, I've given pointers, or I can't take this. But I won't be able to drive a car because I'm like my vision impairment and so forth. But he never like looked at me and say, "Oh, I married you for your albinism." He's always loved me beyond the condition, and I think that's what we need to bring to the community within both communities, is that you can find somebody that loves you beyond the color of skin. And only ignorant people that will find fault in not loving the person. They see the condition, but they don't see the person. So when I got married to my husband, he never stigmatized me. I feel if I even have no makeup on or anything like that, he'd be like, "Hello, Mrs. Green. Hey, pretty. You're beautiful today." All of that. And when I do have like, "Oh man, I can't be bothered today. I don't feel good today," he finds a way of really making me self. And and even though I'm all about empowerment and everything, but there are days where it's really, really rough. You think, you, it's very hard to gasp. But when somebody loves you beyond your melanin skin, and I always joke around and I say to him, "Babe, you stole my melanin." I joke around, I say, "You stole my melanin," and we'll just joke around. But it's that we both find spouses that love us for who we are. And as for me, I can share that some people, my family, never really embraced my albinism. Both opposites. Like I've had the positives and I've had the negatives. So there are people that love my skin now, but then you have some that hate it. But hey, it's up to them. The ones who hate, to each their own. If they want to hate me for having albinism, it is what it is. I can't help the way that I was born. And as long as like I love myself, that's what matters. And if I learn to empower myself, that's what matters. And that's one thing I want to take from this talk is loving the skin that, and you loving the skin that you're in.
Yes, I love the soul that I'm in, and the skin doesn't matter anymore,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next question I'm going to ask you. So the next question: Do you think albinism and vitiligo are in the same category? Meaning, if there's a similarity and difference. So do you think it is in the same category?
I do not think they're in the same category because albinism have different health issues and they have different obstacles than vitiligo. So medically, if we're speaking medically, no, not the same category.
Yeah.
Similarities, yes. Uh, the stigma, the sun problems, um, how other people, what other people beliefs are towards what we look like. In some countries, there's some really backward thinking about albinism and vitiligo. I mean, people are hunted and body parts are harvested. People
Yeah.
are kicked out of their house. I mean, it's some really dark
Yeah.
stories that I've heard about people who are just born with skin that's white. And
Yeah.
so, yes, we have different diagnosis, but we have similar paths.
Yeah.
I do believe that. Yes.
Yeah, because you touched about the myths. I've heard some stories, man, some graphic ones. I've done albinism talk a couple months ago, And a young lady shared this story of a teenager that got killed, mutilated by a ritual priest in South Africa. And what they did was they took her genitals and put it in a mayonnaise bottle. They put it in there for sale. There was also, there have been events where a little boy's hand was off, and there was another story that really touched my heart last year in Zambia. A little baby, by the name of Janeo, I can't remember if it's Janeo, yeah. They pretended that they were police officers, and they chopped off the little girl's hand in front of her mother and brother. That's so tragic.
I heard that story too.
Yeah.
And
so,
this happens a lot, more than we hear about.
Yes, and I think that puts a fear from an international perspective that we, if we're hunted down for body parts, But I think if, for example, this is why I've never mentioned this on Albinism Talk, but I just think if a person with albinism from an international person that goes to places like, and if a person that in their country decides to touch somebody off that's not from that country, I think this will be a big international crisis for that country, in my opinion, if that was to happen.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And why it's not more of an international crisis is you're right. I never thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think if we say, for example, if I decide to maybe Tanzania, and I'm not from Tanzania, and obviously I'm Jamaican by birth, but I grew up in the UK. So the Jamaican government and the UK government will probably just make allies and probably go to that government of that country and be like, why are you touching? This is the natural, you know what I'm saying? I just see it as that. And when I was thinking to myself, okay, if a person with albinism that travels, there's some type of, it has to happen. Because if you step in that country and if anyone does harm to that person, then that government of that country will be liable.
That's true.
They'll be liable.
That's very true.
They'll be liable. Because it goes, and then it will go against human rights, and it will also go, then Amnesty International will get involved. It will be a big disgrace. I have to say, it will really cause a controversy within the albinism community if a person wants to travel from an international plane. Because I done this talk, and one of my friends said that people should not be here because they will chop off the arm. They use it for like wealth and ritual purposes, which I feel like is barbaric. If they're even touching babies and children, I feel like they need to do more within that department. The government needs to bring more stiffer penalties, and for this type of barbaric act, I believe is so inhumane. And I just don't believe that. Why should a person that is no fault of theirs to be stigmatized or to be persecuted just because of a condition that they never asked to be born in this way? And with albinism, it's also genetics, where in order for you to have albinism, it's to carry the gene. It's two recessive genes that make up the albinism gene. So even though you can have 25 to 50% chance of having albinism, and that's something that it can happen to anybody. It can happen to me. So it's, it can happen to anyone. It might not happen now, but 3, 4, 5 generations down the line, there is, excuse me, there is the gene's evidence. So that's why it's essential that we have to keep educating. There's so much resources out there that educates about vitiligo, that educates about albinism, and it's important that if people don't know, get to know. There's Google, there's libraries, there's brochures, there's so much now that is evident towards vitiligo and albinism. And I just pray that we have a better future and of the vitiligo community, because there's so many people in the space of vitiligo and they struggled with self-esteem issues, confidence issues. Maybe they don't want to go outside because of the stigma. And the same as albinism, there's some people, they're hermits or they hibernate because society has the stigma regarding albinism. The way that some parents, they don't. I've heard stories where they don't even send them to school because of the stigma, and parents abandon their children, mothers abandon their babies, husbands walk out on their wives because they believe that their wife cheated on them with a white man. It was just ridiculous. But yeah, I really feel the need to keep empowering albinism, because hey, I wouldn't change the thing about me. This is who I am. And I'm also a fully Black woman. My parents are Black. So, and one of the things I grew up thinking, oh, it's only Black people that have albinism, but it's not the case. There's so many people with albinism that is different race, different religions, different background, and even in the vitiligo community as well, not just Black people who have vitiligo. I've seen Latinos, Asians, you name it. Since joining the TVAN, I've so many people. And I think vitiligo is art.
I do too now. It took me
But how does
7
your
years.
wife,
Go ahead.
sorry, how does your wife, how did she take it though? When she saw your face,
When
was she
we
freaked
first,
out?
no,
Yeah,
because we met online. We knew each other from the past. We had crossed paths in our college days, but we never spoke.
yeah.
So years later, we saw each other on a dating app, and we began conversating. And when we met in person, she didn't she had mixed feelings about it.
Okay.
And every time I would see her, it would be like I would have to warm her up, and then everything would be good. And then the next time I saw her, she'd be cold, and I have to warm her up, warm her up. And I was like, so one day I called her and I was like, hey, I just wanted to ask, why does it seem like you're always hot and cold? Like, from the last time I saw you, the vibe was good, and now you're all cold. And she said, I don't know if I'm strong enough to walk beside you. She
Okay.
said, I don't have a problem with you, but I don't know if I am strong enough to walk beside you with all the other people and all the energy that comes with it. And I told her, I said, I'm so glad you told me that. I said, if that's your truth, I have to honor it and I have to respect it, but I'm not gonna waste my time pouring into you if you're not sure if you can handle it. I said, so respectfully, I'm gonna fall back, and I'll let you think about it, and I'll let you pray about it, and I'll let you I'll make it easy for you. I'm gonna step away, and whatever conclusion you come to, you have my number, and you just let me know, because I'm not gonna pour my heart into you if you're like teeter-tottering hot and cold. So, she said, no, I don't want you to do that. She said, I have feelings for you, and it's not going to be easy, but I don't want you to do that. So if you would please just give me time and give me the opportunity to just wrap my mind around it. And you don't have to step away. So we never broke up. We never stepped away. And she's been my ride or die ever since. I have to pull her away from jumping on people sometimes, because if someone says something crazy or looks too long, she's ready to jump on them like a spider monkey.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I love
I have to
that.
be the level-headed one. She's the angel, and I have to be the level-headed one. What sense does that make?
That's important. Do you know what? Even with my husband, he's very protective of me as well. Like I mean, it has to be the right person to love you in this case,
Right.
because it has to be the right person who really understands. Because my husband is dark skinned, and he's dark skinned, and dark skinned people, they've been stigmatized, and growing up with the colorism of stigma. And
that's interesting. I know that to be the case here in the United States.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was everywhere.
Yeah. So in the UK and the Caribbean, because I'm of Caribbean descent, so I grew up hearing about dark-skinned people being stigmatized. It's been for years. And I used to hear family members used to say, oh, that person's too black, too black or too dark. And I never really thought that they were stigmatized. until I watched a documentary and they talk about the, being black
Colorism.
and the colorism and so forth. And they say like light-skinned people get more privilege, people get more jobs. The other day, I'm gonna bring this story up. The other day I went to get my Asian lady and she was like, oh my God, I love your white skin. And she was going on, she was so fascinated over me. And I'm like, I'm just a normal person. Hang on, man, I'm just only me. But I never told her that I had albinism. But she was so intrigued about the color of my skin. Like, and I said this to my husband, I said, this woman was just so fascinated with my skin. And he said to me, babe, worship your skin in their culture. Your skin is
That
literally
is true.
royalty. It's
That's
proper,
true.
it's royalty. And but when I think about it, one thing that confuses me with the Black community and really baffles me is, okay, I was born with something naturally blonde and my skin is light, but with the bleaching, that's the thing. You're ridiculing us. You're stigmatizing us, but you're bleaching your skin. Why is that? And that's something and that's the confusion part with that. And I get it why dark-skinned people do want to say, I want to bleach my skin because I've been stigmatized by the light-skinned, or I've been stigmatized by my community. And and as I joke around with my husband and say, oh, you stole my melanin. I joke around all the time. But then I think about it and I said, but you don't know what it's like to be me in this skin. No melanin in my skin. I can't get a tan. You can. And he was like, no, you don't know what it's like to be dark skinned, because dark skinned people, we've been stigmatized by the light skin. And even in our own community, as Black people, I face so much stigma being dark. So can you imagine having vitiligo and albinism and dark skin? Those three, probably face
Right.
stigmatization from our own community.
Yeah, that's weird. When I was growing up, I mean, I wasn't never like very dark. I was dark brown. I would get the jokes, but that would wash all over me because I always thought Black was beautiful. So I
Mhm.
never understood the dark skin jokes.
Yeah.
I never understood it, but I mean, I guess it's the beauty is defined by the majority, and then if you let them influence you, you'll believe it too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's important that we empower the shade of Black. I think it's about empowering the color of our skin. It doesn't matter what shade you are. It doesn't matter if you have albinism or if you're light skin or if you're dark skin. I always think of the rainbow. The rainbow has so many different colors. And if we can embrace the rainbow, why can't we embrace the different shades of Black, the different tones of Black? And I think it makes it so beautiful, the human race. So if we bleed red, right? Why is it stigma has the way to approach within society? And we need to break the bias of stigma. We need to change the mindset and mentality of how a person should look, rather than look at the color of their skin and you make your own judgment. And I think it's important as a person, albinism, I just think that we need to keep and bringing the enlightenment to it and embrace the fact that, hey, it's beautiful. Whether you're Black, white, Chinese, Latino, I think it's important to embrace the beauty.
that's
Um,
it. I agree.
the question I'm going to ask you, normally I ask this talk on albinism, talk with Marvelyn. In your community, Ben, is mental health discussed within the vitiligo community?
It is now. When I first started in my journey with vitiligo 7 years ago, it was it was discussed in the community, but not on the side of the medical research and the medical professionals. It was just a autoimmune disorder, and a skin disease. But now people are understanding that vitiligo is more emotional and mental than it is physical. So now, as the world is waking up and getting more educated and awareness is spreading, the mental health aspect of vitiligo is definitely one of the main tiers of service and help. But it's always been a part of our community. We've always addressed the mental health aspect of it, but on the medical side, it's now more prevalent, to answer your question. What about with albinism?
Thank you for sharing that, because I used talks about albinism, and it's very seldom in our community. When I ask my guests, is mental health talked about? The majority of them say no. And I think now is the time to bring these uncomfortable discussions about mental health, because it does affect you in terms of, we focus on the physical aspects of albinism, the no melanin in the skin, hair, and eyes. But have we ever talked about the discussions of mental health? And the answers that I got, I was quite about, and I think it's essential that this topic has to be brought up in broadcasts and talks and in the medical field, and experts who know about albinism. And I think these talks should be discussed, because at the end of the day, it's not so much about the physical aspects of having albinism, but it's also and the emotional and what a person goes through every day. So thank you for sharing that.
I want to add to your question. I think the strongest people in the world are children living with any type of disorder or something that's different about them, because I mean, it was hard enough growing up in my era having brown skin. I cannot fathom being in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth grade with skin like this, because I mean, I'm sure I would have survived, because you know, your journey is your journey, and God has given you your journey for a reason. But the strongest people in the world has to be the children living with a condition like ours.
Yeah, I just think it's by the grace of God that's helped me go through the healing process of self-forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like, I struggled with like self-esteem issues and didn't feel good about myself. And I think when I was about in my early 20s, I started to realize that this is who God made me to be. And also it was through that I had to learn to forgive myself for putting up what I did not deserve, with people's ignorance. And I'm at a place in my life, I'm 33, so I'm like kid sister to you. So I had to learn to love myself for who I am. And every day I wake up, I look myself in the mirror and I tell myself that I'm beautiful, because that's who I am. I'm beautiful. And beauty doesn't define makeup, it's what's in your heart. And what's in your heart, that's what exposes your beauty. It brings the visibility of who you are as a person. When you bring your personality out and you bring your beautiful character out, that's what will attract people to you. As long as you be yourself and be true and real to yourself about how you are, then obviously people will come around, and you send a positive message, or you send a positive presence towards your community. And that's what I'm all about. I try to every day empower myself, encourage myself, and that's how my advocacy study is about empowering myself as a person, as a Black woman and a woman with albinism.
You said that beautifully. Bravo.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. So Ben, please share your accomplishments and your achievements, because I did see you post in the group about that. So please share, how did that start? And another question I'm going to ask as well, when was the TVAN found? When did that establish as well?
TVAN was established in 2018, and I believe it was 2020 that it switched from the Tennessee Vitiligo Awareness Network to the Vitiligo and Albinism Network. So it's been the Vitiligo and Albinism Network for a couple years. My accomplishments, when I was going through that dark space in my life, and I was reaching out to other people in my community to help me walk through this phase of my life. I met some truly amazing individuals, and I was allowed to be energized through their energy and their confidence and their experience through what I was about to go through, with which they've already gone through. So I always promise myself, when I get to the other side, when I get my confidence back, and when I get that joy and zeal for life back, that I'm going to write a book so that I can help whoever is walking through that door behind me. So I wrote a book called here. It's called Embrace Your Higher Self.
Yes, I
A
saw
vitiligo
that.
journey. It hasn't been released yet. It's still in the process of being published. But it's basically telling my journey of how it broke me down, and how I now see vitiligo as a teacher, because it's taught me so much about life and about God and about me and about my relationship in the universe. And I no longer see myself as a Black man with vitiligo. I see myself as a soul that's a part of God, who's a part of the world of love. And once you stop identifying yourself as the mistakes you made, or what you look like, or how fat you are, or how much money you have in the bank, and you identify as a piece of God, I mean, you pretty much don't really trip on the small stuff anymore. You don't worry about who's looking at you, and why people won't hire you because, they don't like me because I look different. You don't worry about that anymore. And to use what you said a minute ago, once you let that inner light glow, you are beautiful. It doesn't matter what you look like physically. If you have a beauty inside and you let it glow, everyone will be drawn to you, because you have that love of God that's beaming through your body. And it's like a moth to a light. Everything, you will attract everything you need and want in life. So that's what this book is about: embracing that higher thing, and not worrying about who they say you are, a minority, a woman, a baby mama, a baby daddy, a welfare recipient, whatever negative things you can think of. Those are just pieces of who you are. But the greater thing that you are is you're connected to God. You're connected to the love of God. And once you embrace it and let it glow through you, you will unlock your higher self.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of the things that and with my journey and my life with albinism is also enlighten myself as a woman. And you mentioned God, and I think even when God deposited love in you, yeah, you quit sweating about the small stuff. Because I used to be so conscious about my blonde hair. I used to be conscious about how I look. And I used to criticize. I used to be my biggest critique. And sometimes I was like, I don't want to go outside looking like this way, that way. I have anxiety attacks over that stuff. But now I'm at a place where I was saying, look, I just put on a headscarf on my head. I just go to the shop. I don't care who stares at me. I've become so thick-skinned. I think that's what we, as in the albinism community, we must learn to be thick-skinned to around. Because if we allow a person's get to us, and if we don't break that, then it's gonna be a part of you that my husband helped me to understand more, because he teaches me about, you got to learn to love yourself. And one day he's like, oh, who's Marilyn? Do you know who Marilyn is? And I was like, oh, I'm just a girl with a golden skin. He said, who do you know who you are? And I had to learn that. I'm thinking, what do you mean? Identity. And I found myself knowing who I am. Who's Marilyn? Marilyn is beautiful. Marilyn is intelligent. Marilyn is amazing. Telling yourself those words, I don't need to worry about who stares at me, or who does this, or who's does that. It's about empowerment, and some. It's also good to encourage yourself daily, and that's how I can be the way that I am. And if you don't love yourself, no one else will. And if you don't learn to respect yourself, no one else will. And if you don't learn to value yourself, no one else will. And that's what I want to really put out to my community, that we have to learn to love ourselves. We have to learn to accept ourselves for who we are. And it doesn't matter if you have, if you have blonde hair, or if and if people want to call you a white girl, or if you want to accept your ethnicity, that's fine. Let them know. But as long as you tell yourself that I am who I am, and you love yourself, then that's fine. You don't need to worry about anybody else. You quit thinking about the minor things, and as long as you have the love of God in your heart, you're on the right path in your life journey.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah. I've got just a few more questions I want to ask you. So in your workplace, have you ever met anyone with vitiligo? So within your workplace?
Just here recently, I work in the school systems currently,
Okay.
and I work with small children. So I mean, I'm just like a walking, like, I don't know, a walking movie, because everyone just turns their head and watches me as I walk by. And
Yeah.
one day I was working, and I saw someone staring at me out the door, and I saw it was a young girl, maybe 12, 13 years old, and she had vitiligo.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything to her because, I didn't know her and we were in a professional environment. But I did want to say, hey, how are you doing? I noticed her watching me. So
Yeah.
that's why we have to be stewards. We have to be leaders. We have to always um, project strength and love and light, so that that little child who was just watching me, hopefully in that moment, she saw a confident person who was living his life and not letting vitiligo determine how I felt about myself. So.
Oh, I'm glad that for me, I went to school with persons with albinism, but some people were quite shy. Um, some are quite shy, some are timid, some don't really have the the strength to approach a person like me. But I just think that it takes one person to open the door, and for them to come in and say, oh, you know what, I know what you're going through, you're not alone. So you don't feel like you're by yourself. You don't need to worry about it, because you're not alone. I've been through what you've been through. I know what it feels like to be stared at. I know what it's like people don't want to sit next to you in the class. All of that I can relate to.
Yeah.
And we just have to kind of like encourage that community, be the voice for those who don't have a voice, and be that pillar of strength for those who feel they don't feel adequate, or they don't feel valued, or they don't feel as if they don't matter, where they do matter.
They
And
do matter.
Vitiligo and
Yeah.
Albinism communities, we matter.
We matter.
Regardless of the fact people will look, oh, look at this girl, or look at him. Um, so I'm gonna move on to this because, all right, can you share some of the names that's been used, like in a negative, regarding vitiligo? What are the names that you've experienced they called you in?
I've not been called it. If you can't see me, I'm a 6'2", 265 pounds. So no one has been bold enough to call me a name to my face, maybe behind my back. But I hear the stories. People are called cow. What else? Oh man, some horrible things. Leprosy. They say, do you have leprosy?
See?
Yeah,
No way.
I told you the meanest thing that a guy that I work with said, man, what's it on your face? I said, it's vitiligo. I said, it's an autoimmune disorder that I have no control over. And he told me, he said, I don't want to look at that. And I told him, I said, well then turn around, because I don't want to look at you either. But that was hard, that was
That's a
early. Yeah, that was early in my, and then the other thing I've already told you, I was at work and 6 police officers show up to my desk or to my office, and they're asking for me. They're asking for my first name is Arthur. It was like, is Arthur Brown here? And they were like, yeah, he's right here. And they just look at me because at the time my whole face was brown and I had white here and white here.
Oh
And they
yeah.
just looked and they just looked at me and they were like, oh, okay. And then my manager was like, well, what's the problem? And he said, well, it was reported that someone got out of his car with a ski mask on and came through the back door.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and that was in front of my entire office. And when I tell you, that was
Wow.
so, I felt so low. I felt so bad.
What
But yeah, I mean,
That's bad.
that's just part of it, man. It's just, you know, this woman asked me a couple of days after Halloween sucks because you know there's a ignorant comment coming. And this lady at my job, she told me, she said, what are you still doing with a Halloween mask on?
Wow. Are you serious?
Yeah. And my boss was standing right there. And I think he kind of felt as bad as I did because that was just,
Oh no.
he was just like, I was like, ma'am, that's my skin. I have vitiligo. She was like, oh, okay. And she just took off. So she didn't mean any harm, but you just get those comments, you know. Kids always ask me, why is your skin dirty? I mean, they don't mean no harm. Because they think I'm white. People think I'm white and they think I have brown dirt on my face.
Oh my God.
You just deal with it. You just shrug it off and keep on moving.
That's a lot, you know. That is a lot.
If you internalize it, it can be a lot. But if you just hear it, if you just hear it and let it go, it's nothing. You know what I'm saying? But if you go home and think about, oh man, 5 people said something negative to me, it can weigh you down.
I've heard names as well. Like I've heard names where they said, did bleaching go wrong?
Yep.
The bleaching go wrong, or do you look like 101 Dalmatians? You know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Get your laugh on. You are enjoying this a little too much. Yeah.
Oh man. They have things that I've heard with vitiligo is so, oh man. They say the 101 Dalmatian, bleaching go wrong, did your skin get burned? You get burned by a fire or something. Obviously, with burn victims, you know, it depends how the severity of the burn. And some people do have like the whole scar with the, you know, with being, people like, have you been burned?
Yes.
Yeah, that.
I think where I live is a military town. So there are people who walk around with limbs missing and you know, shrapnel wounds. So I think a lot of people assume that I was damaged in some type of military exercise.
Oh no!
Because I get that a lot. People ask me, "Are you military? Thank you for your service." And I was like, no, "I'm not military."
Oh my God! Wow, so in a sense,
hey,
like
if we weren't friends, we'd have to talk about how long you laughing at these insults. No,
but you know what? Sometimes you gotta. They in Jamaica we say bad things make laugh. So you know we gotta laugh at.
For sure, for sure.
We have to laugh, then be angry. For sure. And you know, to know that you experienced that, as you being burnt and that, but put it this way, if someone a compliment and say you're from the military service and you got burnt, hey, embrace it. Why not? I should have told them yes.
Yes, well, thank you. You want to pay for my meal? You can pay for
my meal. Pay for my meal. Why not? Yeah. Pay for my meal, pay for my Uber, pay for, hey, give me a discount. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try that.
Yeah. And I think I've learned, I think where if we do more open, and this is the first time, as I said, doing a vitiligo edition, I think I really want to open more doors to the vitiligo community. And if you know anyone that has vitiligo, just tell them that that I am advocating for them as well, because I think, hey, we're beautiful people.
And I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your support. You're always supporting the vitiligo community. And I don't know you, but I just feel your heart. I feel the love, and I feel the light. I
Oh,
feel the light in your heart. And that's what I'm attracted to, people like you. So thank you for what you do, and please continue to spread that joy and light.
oh, will do. I will. I'm just gonna check the time. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's almost coming up to the hour. Thank you, Ben. So before we wrap this up, the question ask you just in closing, what would be the message for the TVAN community?
My message is embrace who you are, embrace your higher self. And if you don't know who your higher self is, I would suggest you do some soul searching to get to know who you are beyond what you look like, how much you make, and the mistakes that you've made in your life. Um, and when you do embrace your higher self, help someone else, pass that light on to someone else. And at the end of the day, my only message is to love yourself first, and everything else will come.
And another message I want to ask, what will be your message to society?
My message to society is to understand that everyone has a soul. And as human beings, we're taught to be biased to color and gender and nationality and country and religion. All of that means nothing. We're all human beings, and we have a soul that belongs to God. And at the end of the day, we're all brothers and sisters. So
Amen.
just treat everyone with love, and if you have disagreements, disagree, but remember that that's still your brother.
Absolutely. I agree. My message for this talk towards my vitiligo community and albinism community, first things first, self-love is a must. Self-care is a must. And I live by the 3 L's in my life. And that's how I am, who I am today, is let love lead. Let love lead, then we become better human beings, we become better persons. And for society, I just think that the 3 L's applies to you as well. I just think we need to show more compassion and be kind to each other. And kindness is free, respect is free. It doesn't cost anything to be respectful and to be kind to a person. Um, and just to embrace that we are beautiful, and we should learn to empower uniqueness, empower a person being different, because there's no point ridiculing somebody just because they were born a certain way. I think we should learn to embrace and to empower each other, because we are all one race, we're the human race, and we're all the same in terms of we all have an arm, we all have a leg, we all breathe, we all bleed red at the end of the day. The only difference is we may have different cultures, different backgrounds, we may come from different diversities, but at the end of the day, we are all one human race.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Ben, for taking your time out with me on Albinism Talk, the Vitiligo edition. So please share your socials if you want the listeners to share your socials.
Yes, you can find me. You can look me up on Facebook. My email address is mrbenjaminbrown@gmail.com, MRBENJAMINBROWN @gmail.com, or you can just do a search for TVAN, the Tennessee and Vitiligo Awareness Network, and we can take it from there.
Thank you so much. So that is it for Albinism Talk, the Vitiligo edition with Ben Brown. Yell4Change advocacy pages is on all social media platforms. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, as this episode will be as a replay for the community to watch. So thank you again for tuning in to Albinism Talk. And remember, yell for albinism. Together we stand. Together we can, and much love, and God bless you. And to the vitiligo community, happy vitiligo awareness to all of you. And we love you. God bless you.
God bless you.